Hello, everyone, and welcome. Through this together as a special little video for everyone as the Great Keeper Debate 2016 presses on. I just wanted to write out and talk out how I think keepers could go in the CHFFL and how I think they could look and work very well. I'm at my house, and you all know my internet is not that great, so if at any point we all lose me, bear with me. I'll probably just do it again because I'm sure nobody's really watching this live. But I'm going to go through and we'll see how this goes. All right. First of all, these are just what I think the rules should be. All keeper leagues don't have to be this way, but I think each team should be allowed to keep between 1 and 3 players every year. Now, that one is mandatory. And I'm not advocating for this position today, so I'm not going to argue why any of these rules are good or not. That's going to be for the debate. I'm just going through them today. So each team keeps between 1 and 3 players. A kept player costs you a draft pick in the next year. Now, if you draft them and never drop them, the next year you lose a draft pick 2 rounds ahead of where they were drafted, and we're calling this the draft value of the player. All right, so example, my little football guy I drew on a fresh paint. Say he was drafted last year or this year, 2016, in the 7th round. Say he's never dropped and chosen as a keeper. The team keeping him in next year's draft gives up their 5th round pick. All right, so the following season, after the player's been kept, you treat the keepers as if they were drafted where their draft value was. So let's see, back to my guy. Shoot, I kind of messed up here with the order of these slides, but I don't really feel like starting this video over again, so we're just going to find the one I'm looking for. Okay. I'll just make what I did with that slide. I didn't put a lot of time into this. Let's say then this guy is chosen as a keeper again. In the 2018 draft, the team keeping him loses a 3rd round pick now. So you see how that works. Drafted 7th round this year, he'd be worth a 5th round pick in the 2017 draft. And then if you keep him another year, he goes down to a 3rd round pick. All right, so sorry for that. Back on order now, we should be. The following season then, if a player was in free agency at any point, the same rule applies to them, but their draft value will always be as if they were in the 10th round or sooner. So say you draft a guy in the 13th round, you think he's a great sleeper. You drop him after 3 weeks, and then he's picked up later on in the season by a team B, and they pick him as a keeper. They don't get him at that great value you drafted him. They got to lose an 8th round pick in exchange for it. And again, reasoning, when we debate it, I'll explain why I have that reasoning more. Now, what this means, since you go up 2 rounds with every keeper, is that players drafted or who have a draft value of the 2nd or 1st round, they can't be keepers. So taking our example, and I mean this is why I'm powering through all of this, because this slide kind of explains everything. If you drafted somebody in the 7th round of 2016, never dropped them, then they're a 5th round pick sacrificed in the 2017. They're a 3rd round pick sacrificed in 2018. There'd be a 1st round in 2019. Now, first or second round pick can't be a keeper anymore. So this means perpetual all-stars like AP or like how Todd Gurley's going to be for the rest of his career or any of those big studs. You can't just draft them and keep them forever. Once they have a second round value, they can't be keepers. All right, so that's all the rules for players. If a team attempts to keep two players with the same draft value, the second pick lost rounds up to the earlier round. Now, this is just so people don't skirt around the rules. Say you want to keep two players who both were drafted in the 5th round. Say you drafted one in the 5th round and you traded for another one, and that guy was drafted in the 5th round. You lose a 3rd and 2nd round pick instead of a 3rd and 4th round pick. And that's just Ty has to go to the rest of the league, I think. Finally, we have to allow for draft pick trading all season in order for this to work. Big disclaimer here. ESPN's normal default settings are absolutely terrible for keepers. I can do all of it. We're not even going to turn ESPN keepers on if we decide to do keepers. I'm just going to run everything, but I need you all, I'll need everyone's cooperation, and I'll need everyone to pay attention, because if people are trading draft picks, it's going to get pretty complicated. So just to recap the rules, because I messed up my slides for a little bit. You pick a guy in the 6th round and you want to keep him for the next year. In the next year's draft, you just have him automatically, but you don't get a pick in the 4th round. So implications I wanted to look at and just give everyone an idea of how this messes up, because I think the big fear people have with is that the draft is pretty much nerfed because the big names are going to be off the board. There's nothing exciting about the 1st round. So everyone's allowed up to 3 keepers. You got to take one. That means between 12 and 36 players are going to be out of the draft pool. So I took the top 15 players by average draft position this year so far in ESPN. I mean, obviously this is going to change, especially Le'Veon Bell with his suspension. But you can just look at these. Antonio Brown, nope, 1st round pick last year. He can't be a keeper. Same with OBJ, AP. Gurley was a 4th round pick to Marty. So whoever ended up, I think Stan ended up with him, could keep him as a 2nd round pick. But you have to remember, if we have keepers on, somebody like Gurley is not going to go in the 4th round. All right. Julio Jones, no. Then Ezekiel's a rookie. DeAndre Hopkins could be kept, but he would be a 1st round pick anyway. So I think that was Stan again. I don't think Stan would give up number 1 overall to keep DeAndre Hopkins, so he'd probably be there to be drafted. David Johnson and Devonta Freeman and kind of Cam Newton, but Freeman and Johnson, I think, 2 running backs. There you kind of see how looking to the future can pay off big time in a keeper league. These guys who were drafted in the 7th round, Freeman and Johnson wasn't drafted in our league last year, so he moves to the 8th by default. The teams that ended the season with those guys get a big boost the next year. All right, so what are the other implications here? When you're planning your draft, you have to think about the David Johnsons and Devonta Freemans of the league. Maybe if you think this guy, I'm not going to use a 12th round pick on him because he's not ready. If you thought that before, now you might be using a 7th round pick on him and taking a shot at having a great player in the next year or having great trade bait at the end of the season. Because that's the other thing, is that late in the season, when a team isn't thinking they're going to make the playoffs, they can trade for stronger keepers. They can trade off older producing players now to try and get people they think are going to be worth keeping for next year. They can trade for draft picks. I don't think you can do draft pick trading without keepers. I don't think that it works. There's not a fair exchange of value there, and all you get are people literally punting by just deciding I'm throwing this whole season away to be great next year. This way, the value has to be there for one team or the other with their players to even things out. And again, disclaimer, we're not using ESPN's keeper settings because all they do is have you lose your first, second, third pick if you have 3 keepers, and that's dumb. Nobody would do keepers. So just hang with me if the debate goes the favor of the people who want keepers. Speaking of the debate, it's going to come up soon after I upload this, and cringe at how bad that was earlier when I was messing up my slides. I'm going to text everybody and get a debate set up because it's going to be really fun. I'm not going to be an advocate in the debate, I don't think. I think I'm going to be more of a moderator. But I want to get this figured out. I just input draft picks into the league, so you can trade draft picks now if you want to. And we'll pick a draft date soon. The draft date I have on the league right now is not actually what it's going to be. All right, so thank you guys if you watched. I hope this was helpful. I'm going to fix these slides and upload them since the video was so bad. But hopefully this explains keepers a little bit more. I'll see you guys later.